Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Become a CFA Charterholder, Benefits and Outlooks 2026. My name is Carlos Cano. I'm a senior lecturer at Tandem Finance, a Peruvian institution founded in 2015 and dedicated to specialized training in finance and investments. Since our founding, more than 2,800 students have participated in our programs. And it is a pleasure to be here with you today and an honor to introduce our distinguished speaker. We are delighted to welcome Rob Langrick, Chief Product Advocate at CFA Institute. Rob joined CFA Institute in 2018 as Head of Practice Analysis, where he led the development of the candidate body of knowledge, the foundational framework that shapes the CFA program curriculum. In his current role as Senior Head of the CFA Program, Rob is focused on expanding global awareness and understanding of the CFA program among both industry professionals and aspiring candidates. Prior to his tenure at CFA Institute, Rob served as a head of Bloomberg Education Division, where he designed and launched Bloomberg Market Concept, one of the most widely used introductory finance learning tools worldwide. He earned the CFA Charter in 2002, the CIPM certificate in 2018, and the certificate in ESG investing in 2021. Rob, it's a pleasure to have you with us this evening. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Carlos. And it's a real pleasure to be with you today with Tandem Finance down in Peru. I'm delighted to talk up all things about the CFA program, something I love to talk about. So let's kick off. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen and then I'll walk through some materials for, I think, 20-25 minutes. And then we'll have a discussion for Q&A, lots of chance to ask questions. So let's begin by sharing the PowerPoint. So we'll pull up the PowerPoint here. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, Carlos, can you see my screen?
Yes, that's perfect.
Very good. Excellent. Let's kick off. Okay, so I'm going to answer a series of simple questions and share some information with you. So who has the CFA Charter? Why do people start the journey? It's a long journey. What do we cover in the CFA program? How do you take it? And then I'm going to talk through some recent innovations to the program as well. And I'll end up by taking through a quick tour of the fixed income area, just to illustrate what's inside the CFA program. But let's begin by who has the CFA Charter. So I always like to show this diagram to explain who has the charter. What it does, it breaks down our 204,000 CFA charter holders into different job roles. And so we think about finance in four areas: the buy side, the sell side, corporate, and advisory. And the size of the yellow bubbles is proportional to the number of CFA charter holders who do each job. So for example, in the top left-hand corner here, the big bubble, the biggest bubble is portfolio manager. Well over 30,000 portfolio managers globally, people who manage money. The second biggest bubble is here in the top right, sell-side equity research analyst. That will be somebody who writes research reports on a company, buy recommendations, sell recommendations, and so on. But when you look across this whole map, you see lots of different yellow bubbles. So why is that? So some credentials are very focused, like CIPM that Carlos mentioned earlier, something we both have, which is really focused on performance measurement professionals. But on the other hand, CFA program is not focused on any one particular job role, which is why you see all people doing lots of different job roles with the CFA program. It's foundational in nature. So it's really think about it like a fusion between a bachelor's in finance and a master's in finance. So it's a foundational piece of learning which creates option value in your career. You can do lots of different job roles once you have the CFA charter. In terms of where people work, here's a league table showing you where people work with the charter. The firm with the most charter holders on earth is UBS. And so with 2,500 CFA charter holders. So you can see the scale of the CFA program is quite large. So when you think about the school you go to or the school you did go to in history, I went to University of Nottingham in England many, many years ago. But no one firm has anything like 2,500 people from the University of Nottingham. So the reason you see these big numbers here is because 200,000 is the biggest group of professionals in finance globally, bigger than any single business school or undergraduate university. So it's a really tremendous networking tool to get to know lots of people at your firm. And remember also, there is not just CFA charter holders, there's also candidates for the CFA program, which is much bigger numbers. So it's very widely known in finance, the CFA program, and it's a great networking tool. In terms of what jobs people do when they start the CFA program, here's the actual breakdown. But you'll notice it's lots of different job roles, and even the biggest job role is only 7%. So only 7% of all people starting the program are accountants, even though that's the biggest bucket. That's still just a small fraction of the total. So don't think that just because you do a certain job role, maybe the program's not for you. It probably is because it's foundational in nature. It's not really designed for any one single job role. Okay, so why do people do the CFA program? So let's start by talking about what the CFA program is. So this is a CFA program. So what we've done, we've taken the world's most famous finance textbooks like Fabozzi and fixed income, for example, Mankiw in economics, Holland derivatives, or Bodie and Marcus in investments. We've made our own version of it. It's 9,000 pages long. Now, what do these books not have that these books have? These books do not have a secure exam. So once you read Fabozzi on fixed income, it's the world's most famous textbook on fixed income, by the way. There's no way you can prove to somebody you've read it. And there's no way to prove to somebody you've mastered those concepts. So we have a secure exam linked to these books on the right with a credential attached to it. So it's a great way to prove to somebody that you have read and mastered the most important books in finance, basically. That's the service we provide. We provide a way to prove to people that you master the main texts in finance, and that is what the CFA program is. One thing we're very well known for is our rigor. And so you're looking here at the pass rate of our 3 levels of the exam. So level 1, level 2, and level 3. And you'll notice the pass rate is hovering about 50%. So if you go to the exam and sit the level 1 exam, you have a 50% chance of passing. Now, to get the CFA charter, the letters after your name, you have to pass level 1, pass level 2, then pass level 3. And so it's very well known that this is a very tough experience because every time we publish exam results, it's on the Bloomberg terminal on Bloomberg.com. They flash on the screen, so people are well aware of this daunting pass rate. Okay, so why do people do it? So I spoke to a lot of people at the start of the pandemic, and I said, hey, why do you do the CFA program? And the number one reason people gave me was something called signal value. So what this means is, well, CFA is a trademark, and there's no way to get CFA after your name unless you go through these rigorous exams. And so it's a great way to show to employers that you have spent the time and effort learning about finance, made a sacrifice. So it's a really strong signal value to them. Also, it's quite a mathematical program. So it's a good way to show to employers that you're quite numerate and you're mathematical. Value for money, obviously. It's not like if you do a master's at Harvard Business School, for example. I think, Carlos, you were at Cornell. I was at Dartmouth. These are expensive programs, these expensive MBA programs. But the CFA program is much, much, much lower price when you look at the price tag. But the CFA charter is master's comparable. Meaning you have letters after your name. It's comparable to having a master's program. So it's a very cheap, high value way to get a master's comparable thing on your resume, basically. Another reason people do it that's quite important. I was a law student at Nottingham in England. I studied law undergraduate. So what I didn't do is I did not study finance. I did not study accounting. So I started my career at Morgan Stanley, the American bank in London, actually, doing M&A, mergers and acquisitions. I did not know accounting. And so the CFA charter was extremely important in my career to teach me things I had not been taught at undergraduate. Also, when you go and work in finance, you'll typically only be trained on one asset class, the asset class they hired you to do. But in this day and age, you need to know all the major asset classes. You have to know equities, you have to know fixed income, you have to know alternatives. But your bank will not train you on all those asset classes. Typically, they'll train you on the one they hired you to do. So if you don't have a finance degree, it's quite important to kind of get this knowledge that you didn't get when you were at college. That's exactly why I did it, and that's why many people do it. Science students also love this because when you study sciences, chemistry, physics, biology, you don't understand things like accounting, and so it's a really powerful way to basically go back and fill that gap of not having done a finance degree. Okay, so what do we cover in the CFA program? At level one, it's really all about the basic toolkits. It's about things like statistics, things like economic indicators, things like how to read company accounts, which is the most important language of business, by the way. You have to understand accounting to work in business. Level two is all about how to value single securities. So the different asset classes have different valuation techniques, and we teach them all at level two. Now, at level three, you've learned how to value all those single securities. Now you put it together into a portfolio for your clients to meet their goals within the constraints they set. So it's all about portfolio construction and portfolio management at level three. And this, by the way, this is the reason why the biggest yellow bubble we saw earlier was portfolio manager, because we ultimately teach you how to be a portfolio manager at level three. You'll also notice there's ethics throughout all three levels at the core of it. We're very well known for ethics as well. And so that's contained in all three levels. So that's the structure of the CFA program. In terms of the topic weights, you can find them on our website. You can also go to this blue link at the top of the page and actually see kind of what in more detail we teach you at each level. You'll notice that it's a real spread at level one, at level two, across the 10 main topic areas. Level three is different. At level three, we're going to focus more on money management, which is why the topic weights are quite different at level three. You'll notice ethics is the same, though, all the way through. We teach you ethics start to finish. And that's good from a branding perspective. People know that you've been through an ethics training program when you have the CFA charter, and that's very important in finance. You have to be ethical and to work in the financial markets. Okay, so how to take the CFA program? What are the logistics? Well, here's the exam room. So it has no more than 26 seats in it. It's kind of like a sensory deprivation chamber. You've got these wooden things to your left and to your right. You put the headphones on, and you've got the screen in front of you, the computer screen. And so it's very conducive to studying and to doing an exam. It is a computer-based exam. What I recommend is wearing layers of clothes because you don't know how cold it will be in that room with the air conditioning. So do wear layers. So if it's too hot, you can take a layer off. Okay, the exam itself. So each of the exam levels is 4 hours and 28 minutes long, broken out into 2 hours and 14 minutes, two halves of 2 hours and 14 minutes. There's a 30-minute break in the middle. It's optional, the break, but I highly recommend you take it because when you do question after question after question, it's quite mentally tiring. So that's the way it's structured. So you'll be at the test center for a good 5 hours after you've checked in, basically. Level one, all level one it's 180 multiple choice questions, A, B, C. That's all level one is. Now, you might think, wow, sometimes people think that sounds really easy because it's multiple choice and just 3 choices. Actually, we've had 1.5 million people ever try level one, and only 2 people ever have scored a perfect score. So it's really quite challenging and still it has that 50% or pass rate. So it's challenging even though it's multiple choice. Level two is the same length, but 88 questions. So far fewer questions. And the reason for that is now we're not giving you standalone questions one after the other. We're giving you scenarios called vignettes, 22 scenarios. So there's more reading you have to do at level two. And then you answer 88 multiple choice questions. And nobody's ever scored a perfect score at level two, by the way. So level three is half multiple choice, half constructive response. That means you type the answers into the computer for half of them. But don't worry, it's not like essay questions. We really expect only about 50 words or so to those constructive response questions. And again, it's 4 hours and 28 minutes. So that's how the exam looks at why do we have constructive response at level three? The reason for that is employers expect mostly people to speak business English, and they expect you to not just do multiple choice questions in order to earn a credential. So really, this is for employers. They want to see people starting with a blank sheet of paper and answering questions on their own without the ABC choices in order to get the credential. So that's the reason we have that at level three. Okay, so latest innovations very quickly. I'm going to talk through six. I'll go each in turn through all six of them. First of all, expanded eligibility. So now you can start the CFA program during your undergraduate studies, which is growing in popularity. And if you're in a 4-year degree program, you can start in the middle, in that summer, in the middle of that 4 years. If you're in a 3-year degree program, you can start after year one. So you can start during college. This is quite good because what we find is that the undergraduate students have the best pass rate, actually. I think they're in study mode. Life is not yet complicated with obligations. And so it's a really good way to get ahead, actually. And also the benefit of starting as an undergraduate is that you can then put it on your resume CV. So when you apply to a firm like JP Morgan, for example, they will know what that is. And so it's a really good way to help with your applications when you're an undergraduate. Next innovation is practical skills modules. We don't just expect you to do multiple choice questions. We also require candidates to do one practical skills module per level at each of level 1, 2, 3. They have options. These are kind of 15-hour video lectures, basically, with some practical components baked into them. So, for example, level 1 financial modeling, you have to build a full financial model from scratch from a blank Excel spreadsheet, make the balance sheet balance. Level 2, analyst skills is something we offer. So this is taught by the former head of research training at Morgan Stanley, how to manage your time, how to publish research, and so on. You can also do Python basics at level 1 and Python advanced at level 2. And level 3, you learn about portfolio construction. So you learn the mathematics of diversification at level 3 in Microsoft Excel. The next innovation, Bloomberg Terminal. So Bloomberg is the main data provider in the world, the biggest one. And we don't test on this in the exam, but we do teach you Bloomberg functions as you go through the CFA program. So this is a new innovation. Wherever you work, if you work at the central bank or if you work at a big bank or an accounting firm, your firm will most likely have a Bloomberg terminal or two. And so you'll learn some of the key commands on it as you go through the CFA program. So that's a cool kind of value add. Number 4, curriculum streamlining. So we notice most of our candidates, 91% of our candidates study either finance or accounting or economics. And so we realized we actually didn't need to ask basic questions at level 1 anymore. We still have that as reading available to everybody if you need it. We don't test on it anymore. So this has made it a bit shorter, the amount you need to study at level 1, which is very welcome by candidates. Practice pack. So a big demand we've had over many years is for more official mock exam questions from CFA Institute. So we now provide that actually at level 1, level 2, and level 3. These are written by the same exam team. And so they basically replicate the difficulty level of the exam itself, which is pretty cool. Finally, just like when you're in an MBA program at year 2, you get to make some choices in terms of what to study. Or if you do an accounting credential, at the end of the accounting credential, you can focus on analytics or tax, for example. CFA program is now the same as that. So you can do the classic flavor, portfolio management. There are 2 new flavors, private wealth flavor and private markets flavor. So there are 3 choices. And depending on your choice, you get a slightly different curriculum and slightly different exam. Now, everybody gets the same CFA charter, but it's just a chance to specialize a little bit on 2 of those 2 new popular job roles, private markets and private wealth, if you wish, or just do the classic. It's really up to you, your choice. You get the same CFA charter no matter which choice you make at level 3. Okay, I'll just illustrate inside the CFA program just briefly before Q&A. I'll show you a bit of the fixed income area. So we're going to be looking at this area here. You'll notice we teach fixed income a lot at level 1 and level 2. So what do we teach you? This is what we teach you. So this is a helicopter view of everything we teach you about fixed income in the CFA program. So we teach you about the different instruments and products. We teach you about fundamental fixed income analysis, the yield curve, what it is. We look at how to value different fixed income securities, looking at things like credits, credit ratings and spreads over the government curve, how to analyze interest rate risk, credit risk, how to value bonds with embedded options, looking at structured products, and then finally fixed income portfolio management, how to manage a portfolio with fixed income instruments. So it's very comprehensive, and this is across those 2 levels there. And so just to illustrate, level 1, this is where the content is for fixed income. It's 500 pages of fixed income content just at level one. And you'll notice that it's a mix of knowledge we teach you and skills. It's a mix of introductory and non-introductory content. The mathematics level is quite high. So that's because in finance, the mathematics content is quite high, and fixed income is definitely quite mathematical. So there's lots we teach you at level one of fixed income. And at level 2 and 3, in fact, level 2, it's very mathematical. There's just a bit less content. And then at level 3 is just some portfolio management content. So you'll see that we teach it all the way through. It's pretty mathematical. And that's kind of how the CFA program works. So we have these topic areas, and we teach you more advanced stuff as you go through from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. So I'll end with a question. So I'm going to show you a real CFA exam question. We've retired it, of course, so this is no longer on the exam, but it's a great illustration of the sorts of questions you can expect in the CFA program. So, and Carlos, you're not allowed to answer this question. So the question is, modified duration is the most important measure of interest rate risk for which of the following securities? Is it for a callable bond, a US Treasury bond, or a mortgage-backed bond? Now, I really like this question because it's very short. The question is very short. And when you think about multiple choice, often one of the answers is obviously wrong. That's not our style. So with CFA exam questions, often you'll look at the question and think, well, I actually don't know the answer. And it really forces you to think. So we don't have very long questions, and we think very carefully about the choices we give you. So no question is easy, basically. So the answer to this question, by the way, is US Treasury bond, because modified duration is a form of valuation, which is a shortcut. And you can only do that shortcut on what we call vanilla bonds or regular bonds. Callable bonds are not vanilla, and neither are mortgage-backed bonds. So modified duration, you can only use it with Treasury bonds. So there we go. There's an illustration of what you can expect on the CFA exam in terms of the sorts of questions and the style of those multiple choice questions you'll be facing at level 1. So with that, Carlos, I think that covers it. So happy to stop sharing my screen now and answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob, for such insightful presentation. We will now move to the Q&A segment of the session. I would like to invite all attendees to submit their questions through the chat. And I think we already have one. So this question is from Pedro Rojas, and the question is it true that the CFA Charterholder replaced the GMAT test when someone applied to a master?
It's an interesting question, actually. So we both went to master's programs, Carlos, in the USA. And certainly, I think if you have the CFA charter when you apply for a master's program, a master's in finance or MBA, certainly, me personally, I definitely feel that it helped me get into a very good business school, a top 10 business school. And obviously, I would never know if, what would have happened if I applied without the CFA charter. But I definitely felt it helped. And certainly, when I was at Dartmouth College, I managed to skip accounting. So I waived doing accounting at year 1 at Dartmouth School, Tuck School at Dartmouth, which is really cool. I think I've heard a couple of schools that will waive GMAT, but it's very sort of random, meaning some schools can choose to do it. Most do not allow you to skip GMAT just because you have the CFA charter. What I will say, however, is it gives you a strong edge when you apply. So the thing with GMAT, oh gosh, I remember taking GMAT back in 2003. Wow, 22 years ago. And the rule then I remember was that, to really get into a top 10 global program, you had to get 700. I don't think that's changed, that rule of thumb. The reality is, look, if you got the CFA charter, you're going to be pretty good at the GMAT. You're going to be good at taking exams. But the joke about GMAT is the GMAT tests how good you are at the GMAT. So it really is all about repetition and practice, getting a good GMAT score. But sadly, I have heard stories about waivers of GMAT. I've not heard many stories like that. So no, I generally don't think it's true that the CFA charter allows you to waive taking the GMAT. But if you look at the sorts of business schools where people with CFA charter have been, I definitely think that it really helps raise the kind of ranking level of the schools you can go to if you have the charter when you apply.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Rob. So we have another question here from Carlos Farid Malcom Vergara. The question is for a dual citizen, US Mexico, looking to break into US asset management. How does the CFA Institute view the cross-border portability of the charter in 2026?
Well, it's very well known in America, CFA charter. So being a dual national is great because it gets around all the immigration issues that you would have otherwise, visa sponsorship and so on. Well, I think it's very powerful being a dual citizen, because it's really hard to get to move to America, especially these days, quite honestly. So I think that's going to be a huge help for you. But also, the way I think about internationals with the CFA, like me coming to America, for example, I'm now dual national US, UK. I naturalized in 2016. I felt that the CFA charter was really good coming to America with because well, people heard of Nottingham from Robin Hood in the movies, right? And then was it Kevin Costner? But not many people have heard of University of Nottingham. It's not a big brand name, and so the reality is, whereas CFA Charter is a big brand name, so the world runs on branding. There are some excellent schools in Mexico. You've got the ITESM system, for example, that is very well known in the USA. But most schools in most countries, people have not heard of them. And so, especially for someone who's immigrating, let's say to the USA, it's really helpful to have the CFA charter as well, because most American employers may not have heard of the school you went to. And so recruiting can be very brand oriented. And so speaking personally, I was using the CFA charter to have another brand on my resume, quite simply. So I think that, but that being said, being a dual national is an amazing benefit, honestly, because immigration barriers are very high. But having the CFA charter when you come from outside the USA into the USA is huge, because all of a sudden people looking at your resume know that the quality of the program you've been through, the CFA charter, whereas they may not have heard of the school you went to.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob. We have another question here from Mauricio Martinez Silva. The question is, how many years does it take in an average to achieve the level 3?
So when we look at the statistics, there are lots of ways you could measure this. But typically, when we look at our CFA charter holders, they typically took about 4 years from sitting the first level 1 exam to earning the CFA charter. Now, remember that you can pass the exams but not get the charter yet because you need the work experience. So you've got to accrued 4,000 hours of qualifying work experience over no less than 3 years. So if you quickly go through the exams, you still have to wait to get the CFA charter. So that does slow it down a little bit, getting the work experience. The fastest way through the exams, by the way, if you start with the February exam at level 1, you can then, and pass that, you can then sit the level 2 exam in August. And if you pass that, you can then sit the level 3 exam in February. So that's the fastest way through the CFA program exams, but you still have to wait 3 years to get the work experience along with that, and that can be done in parallel or afterwards. Very few people, less than 1% of CFA charter holders, by the way, or less than 1% of new level 3 passes have been through it that fast. It's really rare to do it that fast. But yeah, 4 years is the typical length of time it takes. And remember, it's very common for people to fail one level once. So in fact, when we look at our CFA charter holders, most of them have failed one level at least once. It's the exception of people who have not failed any level. And that also slows the journey down. That's included in that 4-year number, though. So a good answer is 4 years.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob. Now we have this question from Omar Bernaola Guerrero. And the question is, what knowledge should I have before I start the CFA preparation for level 1?
So there are 3 sort of things that we would say are prerequisite. So business English. Like when you fly a plane, all pilots globally have to speak English. That's for safety reasons, by the way. So finance can be somewhat similar. While there are some countries like Brazil that will operate in Portuguese or Japan and Japanese, most countries in finance will operate in English in institutional finance. So our exam's in English, it's only in English. And so business English clearly is a requirement because otherwise you wouldn't be able to sit the exam. The second requirement is high school algebra. So the algebra in the CFA program is not complicated, but you do need to know about algebraic notation. So the use of X, Y, Z, and so on, and parentheses and the different functions. You need to know exponents. There's a little bit of logarithms. That's pretty much the most advanced it gets is logarithms. So both log and natural log are in some equations. That's as advanced as it gets. It's nothing like the CQF. I see, Carlos, you got the CQF there. CQF is much more mathematically advanced
Yeah,
than the
it's
CFA Charter. Much, much more. So it's not like that. So it's the mathematics. If you have high school algebra, that's good enough. So that's the kind of second requirement to get through there. So really, they're the kind of core requirements of algebra, and then the business English are the key ones. So and you can kind of start. I did a law degree in the UK in the 1990s, so I didn't even know accounting. And remember those three books at the top of the pile we showed that were twisted around? That just illustrates kind of the basic stuff that's also a prerequisite. So basic stats, basic economics, and basic accounting. But we give you those books. So you don't. It's not really a prerequisite because we give you those prerequisite readings. So the prerequisites are quite low for the CFA program.
great. Thank you very much, Rob. Next question, is it for pursuing the CFA if I'm planning to specialize in economics, or if there is a more relevant certification for someone focused on economics?
So I'll presume you mean financial market economics. So being a financial market economist is a very prestigious job. You've got some very big names like Jan Hatzius at Goldman Sachs, for example. So it's a very big, important job. When you look at the big financial market economists, like go on Bloomberg Terminal, PEOP function, or go on LinkedIn, what you'll notice mostly is they mostly studied economics at undergraduate and just joined a firm. And some of them will have an MBA, basically. In terms of CFA charter holder, there are definitely CFA charter holder financial market economists. I did a webinar with them. In fact, you can find it on YouTube on my career webinar series. Some of them do have the charter. But it definitely not, the CFA charter is not a requirement for really any job role per se. It's not a license, it's not a requirement. But you do see it for each job role. You see some big people who have the CFA charter. In fact, on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, I'm interviewing 3 chief investment officers, all with the charter, including the CIO of JP Morgan Asset Management here in New York City. But not a requirement for any job role. If you want to be a financial market economist, and if you didn't study economics at undergraduate, then yeah, I think it's a really good thing to do. Because we do include one of the 10 topic areas is economics, and you'll learn all about economic indicators in there. In fact, at level 3, there's now a new practical skills module called practical macro, where you learn about practical macroeconomics. So there are definitely things in there that will help you be a financial market economist. Typically, how do people get those job roles? Often they'll go as an undergraduate and work on that team as an analyst. It is kind of a really good way people do that. But certainly it would not hurt having the charter or having passed level 1 when you apply for a job role like that. But no, CFHR is not a requirement for that job role, but there are still several famous financial market economists with the CFA charter.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob. So we don't have no other questions so far from the attendees, but I have some additional questions for you, Rob.
Sure.
So my question is, does the CFA program help professionals who wish to transition into the investment industry? How does it compare, for example, in this regard to a traditional Master in Finance?
Yeah. So Master in Finance has got some similarities and some differences to the CFA charter. Certainly both will help you switch career. I would say that the Masters in Finance tend to be mostly residential programs, and typically they're 1 year long. They can be a bit longer, and they can also be a part-time, but many of them are full-time residential. We're not residential. We're a self-paced self-study program, CFA Charter. So CFA Charter is certainly a lot cheaper for that reason as well than doing a Master's in Finance. But a big plus of the Master's in Finance is what's called on-campus recruiting. So when you're at a school that does a Master's in Finance, they'll have relationships with employers, pipelines to those employers. And so that's a big benefit. That's a big reason people do that. Also, the MBA, frankly. So my business school, Dartmouth College, Tuck, has big connections with McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, the consulting firms. And I got a job at Bain. Why? Because I had a relationship with Bain. Bain likes to recruit people from Dartmouth. So that's a huge benefit that you'll get from a master's program that you won't get from the CFA Charter. But the CFA Charter has different benefits. So I can really only count three business schools in the world which go as deep into finance as the CFA Charter. So you're looking at schools like Columbia, Chicago, and Wharton, University of Pennsylvania. They're really the only three that go into the sort of depth we go into with the CFA Charter. So if you're not lucky enough to go to one of those three schools, then I would say I went to Dartmouth College Tuck. It's a top-down business school. It is nowhere near as deep in finance as the CFA Charter. So if you want to have that depth in finance, then I think that the CFA Charter is going to be deeper than many even Masters in Finance programs because they tend to be fairly narrow. There's only so much you can get done over that 1 year in a Master in Finance. Whereas we teach you for 9,000 pages. You're going to study at least 900 hours with the CFA Charter across the different asset classes. So you get a different mix of things from the CFA Charter than you will from a Master in Finance. So all the Masters in Finance tend to have the different specialties, but often linked to the professors who teach at those Masters in Finance. Now, these are all great experiences. There are definitely some things the Masters in Finance has that the CFA Charter does not have. And so it's really up to you. I think the big thing to bear in mind is these are not mutually exclusive. So I have an MBA and I have the CFA, as do you, Carlos. And have many more credentials than me, I can notice. So they're not mutually exclusive, these experiences. And actually, what happens is their value tends to multiply. So if you have two credentials, it's worth more than twice having one credential, is the way to think about it. And that's not just networking benefits, it's also sort of knowledge benefits compound between them, I would say. And so don't think you can only do one of anything. And you can also do things in a different order. So I see people get the CFA before they do an MBA. I see people get the CFA after they do an MBA. So think about it as a range of options. I think so the question you really have to ask yourself is, what do you want to do? How many things and in what order? That's a great way to think about it. And often that will link to your career goals. So always do the next thing where it's going to give you a concrete benefit of some sort in terms of recruitment, immediate recruitment outcomes. That's often the way people think about what to do and when.
Thank you very much, Rob. To our attendees, please feel free to formulate your questions in Spanish if you want. I'm more than happy to translate your questions to Rob. So in the meantime, I have another question. So Rob, what are the main benefits that charterholders receive by becoming members of the CFA Institute?
So I'd say the main benefit of being a member is networking. So let me give you some numbers. So we've had since 1963, we've had 300,000 people roughly pass level 3 of the CFA program. 204,000 are still members today. So it's a very sticky, because remember, some of them have passed away, right? Some of them were, took it a long, long time ago. And so it's a very sticky product, meaning when you pass level 3 of the CFA Charter, you're much more likely than not to become a CFA Charter holder. And when you become a CFA Charter holder, you're very likely to stick with that for a long time because you made the investment and the time to earn those letters. So definitely people value it. Just statistically, look at those statistics. That's very good. That shows you there's value. People want to be a member for a long time when they pass level 3. I would say it's the signal value. Remember that chart I showed, the signal value? It's a trademark. And so you put it after your name, the way it's look at on Zoom, it's after myself and Carlos's name. And that's a brand. and we invest a lot of money in that brand. And so you get some benefit from that brand investment we make. And so it kind of tells people you're smart and hardworking. It tells people you're the real deal. It tells people you have the threshold competence. It tells people you're numerate. There's no way you get through those exams without being mathematical. So there's a great branding benefit that comes from it. And then I think later on, you start to appreciate the networking benefit, whether you're in Lima or whether you're in New York City like myself. You know what it is? I was at the JP Morgan headquarters last week. I did a tour of their brand new building. Now that building in New York has the most CFA charter holders in a single building of any building on planet Earth. So there are 1,000 CFA charter holders there, and you'll bump into people, and you'll have something in common with them immediately, and they'll see CFA after your name, and it just starts conversations quite easily. And that will also be true if you are a professional and you're in a meeting with clients and they see CFA and they're CFA. So it's this natural icebreaker. So it's a huge sort of social benefit, I would say, that makes it easier to do business with people. So there are many benefits coming from being a member.
Thank you very much, Rob. And regarding our candidates or regarding the CFA shareholders that want to continue learning more about finance, what resources are available to them once they become members of the CFA Institute?
So I'd say the most important thing is be a member of your local society. So being a member of the society gives you access to networking events and thought leadership sessions locally. Often they'll be put in the local context of where you are, which is beneficial. We also offer thought leadership to our members. There are lots of things available to members that are exclusive to members only. When you log in to your portal, there are learning opportunities. So, for example, now there's a private wealth certificate available to all members for free. For example, that's not available to anyone but a member of CFA Institute. So there are these unique exclusive learning opportunities that we have. We have conferences around the world as well, which are great networking opportunities. So there's conferences. There's the member login page. There's the job board, career board, where you can look for jobs in your local area, and that's available for members of CFA Institute. So there are lots of lots of benefits to being a member. I'd say the biggest benefit actually, and I'm a member of CFA Stanford in Connecticut and also CFA New York. It's that networking benefit I get, which is almost like an insurance policy in your life, because if one day you lose your job, for example, in finance, you can fall back on that network in your local area, and it's a really good way to get job interviews because you'll be plugged into the network. So I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit. People treat it like an insurance policy on their career.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I have one last question, at least from my side. What would be your key recommendations for candidates to be successful in the CFA program?
Yeah, the number one piece of advice I always give to people is having a study plan and sticking to it. There's no way you can study the night before the CFA exam and get through it because there's too much stuff to memorize. And remember that statistic that only 2 people have ever scored a perfect score at level 1. It's really hard to randomly pass the CFA exam. So the way to pass it is, get really good at eliminating wrong answer choices, basically. And the only way to do that is to master the content. You saw that question I showed you about modified duration. These are not straightforward. You either know or you don't, the answer, right? And the way you know it is by reading the curriculum. So the main thing is discipline. So it takes a typical 300 hours per level to study. That's a lot of time. And what you do, the moment you register, you can register 10 months before the exam window, schedule your exam, work backwards from it with a calendar, maybe choose a vacation week as well in there, saying, look, I'm going to take a week off work, I'll study. And you work backwards and then find out how you can deploy 300 hours and then make sure you stick to it. One trick I see is getting up 1 hour earlier each day, which is quite a good way because there are no distractions very early in the morning. That's a good tip. Another great tip is doing lots of mock exams just before the exam itself. So level 1 now, you can have up to 8 official mock exams. So if you take the mock exam at the same time of day as your scheduled exam and take it the 8 days before the exam, then when you think about it, exam day is almost like day 9 of doing the same thing. So that's a really powerful technique to use as well. Doing the mock exam is not just a test of am I ready? It's a form of study because when you go back and read all the explanations to the questions, even if you got it right, you may have got it right for the wrong reasons. You may have randomly got it right. It's multiple choice. So it's a form of study as well as a form of testing, am I ready? So that's a very powerful tip to do one mock exam per day in the run up to the exam. Do not do mock exams until just before the exam itself, because they're very beneficial. But if you do them too early, you waste them basically. Wait until you do the mocks till the end.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rob. We have a couple of questions from our attendees. We have another question from Omar Bernaola. The question is, which is the most difficult subject in the CFA Level 1 exam?
So what people tell us in the survey is fixed income and derivatives. And I really think that's basically about mathematics. So that's where you're going to have the most multiple step calculations to do, which is really where the difficulty level of the CFA charter comes through is multi-step calculations. And that's really focused on fixed income and derivatives. Although there's some multi-step calculation in other areas like portfolio management, for example. But people tell us fixed income and derivatives. I think conceptually, fixed income and derivatives are quite conceptually difficult for people. Because in fixed income, you've got the inverse relationship between price and yield, which takes quite a lot of understanding. And the only way you can really understand fixed income is by doing lots of problems. That's really important. There's a saying in mathematics, the only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics. That's definitely true in fixed income as well. It's a learning bond mathematics, basically. Derivatives, same. It's conceptually difficult until it clicks one day. So I think people struggle with that. That it takes it's very conceptual and can feel very abstract derivatives until you start doing lots of different problems. So I'd say it's that abstraction that makes it difficult for people, and the sheer mathematics, learning the Black-Scholes equation, BSM, Black-Scholes-Merton, is quite sophisticated algebra. So people find that difficult. So yeah, fixed income and derivatives are the two that people find the most difficult.
Thank you very much, Rob. So we have one last question here from Ricardo Montiel. The question is, what recent changes has the CFA Institute incorporated into the curriculum to adapt to the current AI, fintech, private credit topics?
So we actually put AI into the curriculum back in 2018. We started with it. We had a fintech reading, but we also had some different techniques in there, and machine learning techniques like principal component analysis, for example. And we've actually ramped that up as well. So we have specific sections on big data projects and big data analytics in the CFA program. And it's quite difficult to cover AI. AI is moving so fast, and we have these annual curriculums that actually I don't think we're ever going to be teaching the very latest AI techniques in the CFA program because we have an annual curriculum which has an update cycle. I think that when it comes to learning AI expressly, I think there are the CFA program is going to teach you some of it, but you're going to have to use other outlets to really go deep into using new AI tools like Claude, for example. Yes, we do teach the basics. We have Python as a practical skills module at level 1, level 2, which teaches the foundations of large language models. I would also say that statistics is extremely important to grasp if you are wanting to do AI. And so we teach you the basic stats you need to understand matrix mathematics, which is really the heart of LLMs, right? When it comes to the latest AI techniques in terms of prompt engineering and so on, no, we don't teach that in the CFA program. And I don't think we will be teaching that to any great extent in there because things move so fast that it's going to be very out of date by the time we publish it. So that being said, as a member, we do have lots of thought leadership webinars and so on for our members about AI, about things like prompt engineering. So it's more of a thing you'll learn as a member with our member learning offerings than the CFA program itself.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob. So, are there any additional questions would you like to ask Rob? Okay, if not, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to the CFA Institute for this opportunity, to Rob for his time and insightful presentation, and to all of you for joining us today. We truly hope you found this session informative and valuable. Wishing everyone a wonderful weekend. Thank you once again for being with us.
Cool. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.